Hello everyone, Zelrant here, and it's been a couple days since Florence has been out for Girls Frontline 2, and so those on the CN servers have been able to try her out for a little bit and kind of give their feedback and thoughts on it. And one thing I did see is that on Loot Waifu's community tier list for Girls Frontline 2, they have added Florence. So I thought we'd go ahead and take a look at Florence and how they place her here, and I'll kind of give my thoughts as well in terms of what they mentioned with her. In terms of how good she is and whether or not she's a unit that you want to get or invest into. Because there is she is really good from everything I can tell, but there are some drawbacks to wanting to invest in her, more in the case of opportunity cost versus them being bad. And so we can see right here on Loot Waifus, they have put her in tier 2. Now when it comes to all the other Hydro members, you have Springfield at T0, which is absolutely true. And then you have Lolo and Nikita at tier 1. So of the Hydro team, she is lowest tiered of them, unless you count Springfield, which I believe they have, not Springfield, if you count Sabrina, which they have down in tier 3. Now, you will get at V6 eventually, but she still has fallen quite off in terms of value, even though she is Hydro. So I don't really kind of count her into that, because she hasn't really been used in the Hydro team in content lately. But let's just go ahead and take a look at Florence. They have in tier 2, so she is below all the other ones in the Hydra team, in the core team at this point. But let's see what she has going on and what they say. So they're basically saying she's Robella, but for a good element, which is true. Hydro and Burn are the two main big elements currently in Girls Frontline. They're the two meta. Hydro being crazy good and crazy efficient in terms of free-to-plays, like the easiest to get like the entire kind of team together without having to invest heavily in dupes to kind of get them, like, I wouldn't say max value, but the most efficient value. In terms of Springfield, her V1 is where you kind of get the crazy extra. And then Tololo being a standard unit, you can get her dupes super easily. Nikita's great right out of the gate at V0. And then Florence, which you'll see here, she's great right out the gate at V0. That's one thing automatically for her. She is great right off the bat as V0. So nice debuffs, with defense down being the most important, which is really nice. That's one thing Klukai was bringing to the team in the hybrid corrosion combo with corrosion and hydro. And so she replaces that need on the team. And then she also has a very good buff. Her buff is really, really good. It's the one that I made the joke with in the title of my last video on her, with the stimulants buff that basically makes it where as the person with the buff takes damage, their own damage goes up, but the downfall is that it also takes away some of their health. And so, but keeping up is a pain unless you have a V3, but even that's not needed to, because the summon sustain is free, because all of her skills have no cooldown or skill point cost. And that's the big thing. When we looked at it, it was kind of, when we didn't have the numbers, it was hard to tell how her rotation was going to go because of trying to keep the summon up and available. But nothing has any cost with it. There's no confectance cost on anything, and there's no turn cooldown on anything. So she can keep spamming whatever skills you want and whatever rotation you want. Now, there's going to be a best way to do it, but there's no having to worry about waiting for a cooldown or anything. The only thing that confectance index really covers within her kit is when you run out or bear disappears. So, not too big of a deal, even at V0 there. Yeah, but you have the problem that you might accidentally kill your own units if you're not careful with her buff. The big one being Tololo, because as we read with that stimulant, it applies every time that person's turn goes. And Tololo, as you know, can go multiple times in a row. With the Springfield V1 and her at V2, she can go 3 times in a row in a single turn, meaning she can get hit with that HP damage 3 times in a single turn. And if you're not paying careful attention to her, she can die very easily. But that's the great thing about Springfield, especially if you have a heavily invested one, because she's going to help keep her alive, which I mentioned here. If you have Springfield's ultimate up, you're not going to have any problem with that. Springfield is crazy good at healing, even though she's crazy good at being a support as well. So, makes a lot of sense there. She won't outperform a borrowed Klukai, but she definitely held her own if you have an invested Springfield and Nikita. And so, from what I can tell from this, because they don't really mention it, but, I mean, right now, you can do the full Hydro team of Florence, Springfield, Tololo, Nikita, and then you can borrow a Klukai. The big problem is, a lot like like what they've mentioned when they talk to me in my stream is that you pair Klukai with like Peridia, and Peridia will make it so that you got a lot of that single target damage with her, and then the borrowed Klukai, especially if they're V6, is going to be doing a lot of damage on her own, and she can apply that defense down 2 debuff. So that combo together is better than Florence, but Florence at a low investment without having to borrow any units, if you just do those 4 units, is really, really good at V0. And then maybe you want to, it might potentially actually open up a better team for Hydro. It's just Klukai isn't the unit that you borrow over this team. You do all 4 of your Hydro units, and then maybe that 5th one, I'd have to kind of look in theory craft because I haven't really seen yet, but who would be like the 5th one you borrow? Because I think Klukai is not going to be your best one for damage in this case anymore. It might be someone like a Yuhi V6 if you have a Yuhi V6 you can borrow, or some other big unit that you might be able to borrow. So definitely a great unit. Florence is definitely, to me, going to be a must-have if you're wanting to invest in Hydro. Now, the biggest negative, well, I wouldn't even say it's a negative, because her dupes are good. The downside is everybody else in the Hydro team's dupes are even better. And you can kind of see that with here. That's their last comment they make. If you want to invest more into her, she can do very nice damage, but keeping her at V0 and investing other units is more important or better. So overall, nice unit, but a bit limiting at low dupes. And that's the big thing. Springfield is like your ultimate, if you're going to invest in dupes on Nikita, Florence, or Springfield's the first one you go for. Springfield is going to do more for the team than Florence will. And will provide more than even the Nikita dupes will. And it being so, you want to go all the way to V6 on Springfield, in my opinion, before you even invest in Nikita and Florence in their dupes. And then you go to the next. So Florence versus Nikita. Nikita is like your main big damage dealer, and investing dupes in her is just going to really ramp up her damage even more. She's really good at V0, but she's crazy at V6 as well. And we'll take a look at that here. I can take a look at an image here in the video Sia has. I'm kind of waiting before I showcase some of her in combat skills, because I was going to do a video kind of reacting to it, but I don't see a V6 video yet. Just one of her at V0 with Florence. But you can kind of see the damage difference because it does have a V6 Nikita in that fight to kind of compare. And so then you're going to want to heavily invest in the Nikita. And so now you're already looking at 2 V6s before you're even getting to Florence and dupes. Now, we don't have to include Tololo since you can get her on standard tickets. But you're basically having to get 6 dupes before it really feels worth it to get Florence. So that's the kind of downside. She is in such a good team. You're wanting to invest in the other units before you invest in her dupes, even if her dupes are good. And so it is what it is there. Now, she's like your favorite character. It's not going to be bad to invest in her. It's not going to be meta to invest in her over the others. But Hydro team is good without significant dupes anyway. So if Florence is your favorite, maybe she's the one you invest in. And being a support, I feel like she will have more longevity than Nikita potentially. Especially with her, I would say, like with her personal pistol and summons, there's always the potential of something coming up in the future that could like convert summon damage, for example, to like Hydro. That's just me just throwing something out there. I have no clue. But so there is always that as well. So she could potentially, in my opinion, be a better one to invest in over Nikita in the long term for that, just being a support. But Springfield by far is way better to invest in than Florence. And that one's kind of not close. But you don't really need to invest in any of them. So if she's your favorite, ultimately, you want to invest in your favorite. But yep, I mean, everything here makes sense. It kind of goes along my thoughts on it. They kind of have comments here on the dupes now. V3 and V6 are the most important dupes. You can start to do decent damage at V5. It's very expensive to build her, and there's better units to heavily invest in anyways. Weapon choices are between the signature, phase, standard weapon, and a battle pass weapon. If you need more damage, you get the standard pistol, and if you need more utility, get the battle pass one. The big thing with the battle pass one is it provides that confectance index in that. I think I would just go with phase because, as I said, the confectance index doesn't really help in this scenario anyway. She doesn't really need it because she can run her ultimate whenever she wants. But it might potentially make it where you have an extra turn where you don't need to do it. But I think her weapon is really good. I think it's a kind of, we need to see what other units they have coming out with summons in the future. Because that is one nice thing about her pistol. I think it's got a generic value to it with its buff to summons. And those are my favorite when it comes to weapon. Now, I got Klukai's weapon because Klukai's my favorite character in the game. But when it comes to most of the other units that I'm going to get weapons for, it's not the DPS as much that I care about. It's more the supports, because they're going to have more. To me, generally supports have longer term value. Springfield V6 is going to have a longer value than even Klukai or those, just being a support. It's going to be very hard for someone like her to be power crept. Same kind of case could be with Florence and her weapon in that case, in my opinion. So overall, great character. I think I pretty much agree quite well with her. I could see her being, to me, because she's in such a synergetic team, I put her at like the top. I mean, they don't rate these left to right or anything. I think it's just alphabetical order here. But she's like one of the top of the tier 2 in my opinion. I mean, alongside someone like Andrus. I think Andrus is, I mean, Andrus to me is kind of more of a T1. But in this, she's probably the top of the tier 2s on their list, in my opinion. But I mean, it makes sense. She is the least, she's good, but she's the least needed of the Hydra team. The Hydra team doesn't need her, but she pairs really well with them overall. But yeah, I do like that. I think she fits where she is. Definitely a must pull for me, and I think anyone that likes Hydro must pull as well. And we still need to get our 5th unit. I mean, we only have 4 units for the Hydro team, so who knows who's coming next. And that next person may elevate her value even more. Now, the Hydro team's already broken, so who knows? The next one may be not that good because the Hydro's already too good, and they really need to get someone good out for the other elements to kind of make them even up. But we'll kind of have to see. But that's pretty much it for now. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.